Hi everyone, Kendall here, and welcome to the Butterfly Garden Sew-Along. This has been much awaited since I first announced it in February, which was probably a bit early considering I wasn't going to be starting it until May. I got a bit excited and put it out there early just to gauge interest, and I have been blown away by the response. I also am very grateful for all of you jumping on board over at my Facebook group. But if you don't do Facebook, I will have the patterns available in a separate link in the description box below. The patterns will be released every Saturday along with the video, which will always be a premiere, and that will always start at 7:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for my US-based folks, which is 9:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for all of us Aussies. For anyone else in any other country, YouTube will show you the time that it goes live in your time zone. So just keep a check on my channel each Saturday for when these premieres will go live. As I said, I really am blown away by the response this quilt has gotten, and as you can see on the wall behind me and in this nicer image that I took of it outside, I have got my top fully completed. I have recorded all of the videos already, and it will just be a case now of me to edit those each week and post them up as a premiere. We will double up a bit with the next Block Wednesday from Pat, but I'll let her tell you all about that on her video next Wednesday. This week we are making the butterflies, and throughout this video I will only be constructing one butterfly, but we do need to make a total of 5. The setting for the butterflies will come along a lot later when we are doing the actual setting for the complete quilt. I have created some foundation papers, which there is a link in the description box below for you to print and download and print. And I am, as I said in my previous video, attaching a small fee to this as it took me a little bit to print those and test them. The most important thing is I have set them up for the American size paper. We in Australia use A4, which is bigger, but I have actually set them up to be printed on your letter size paper. So you'll just need to print those at 100% to make sure that you've got accuracy. I wasn't able to figure out how to put a little thing on there so that you could know that they're printed at the right size, but for each block as we go along, if you match the size of that, especially for the butterfly, that part of the wing to what the block should measure in the actual pattern, then you'll know that you've printed it out correctly. It is the best I could do. I'm looking into other ways to get those produced, but that may also increase the cost. You'll just need to print a test copy, make sure that everything's measuring correctly, and then you'll trust for the rest of them that that is actually going to be okay. Okay, I have really spoken enough now, so without much further ado, grab your beverage, grab your fabrics, come with me, and I'll show you how I do it. So we begin, as always, with all of our pieces cut out as per our pattern and the cutting directions, and you'll see that I also have letters assigned to each of the pieces here. And that's just so that we can keep track of where we're up to. And what I have here is all of the pieces to make all 5 butterflies. Now, in the pattern, this is how the cutting directions will look. And you'll notice that I've got a picture of the block with the fabrics in it, and then a line drawing telling you which letter applies to which piece so that you can pick the best fabric that you have. So if you are using scraps and you want piece G, you know that you need to have a scrap piece that's at least 5 and a bit by 6 and a bit inches big to use that. With that print fabric side on the right hand side, you will see that it says to cut 2, and now that is for each butterfly, and we are making 5, so we need 2 each, making 2 each of our prints, making a total of 10 to get all 5 of our butterflies made. On the left hand side, A, B, C, D, E, F for our background fabrics. A won't always be a 2-inch square, B won't always be a 3.5-inch square. I've got this same legend coming up for all of the blocks as we go through. We're going to follow through as per the actual printed pattern, but because I've put that first screen up, if you screenshot that, you may not even need to go print the pattern and just follow along with what we're doing. So we are going to start by making the upper wing section, and for that we need our G rectangles, our A, B and D background squares. and we are going to do a sew and flip on 3 corners of our G rectangle using those background squares. Throughout the video, I am only going to be making 1 butterfly, but as I have said many a time already, and you'll probably hear many a time again into the future, we do need to make a total of 5. We're going to use these background squares to do a sew and flip on 3 of the corners of our rectangle, and we are needing to make a mirror image. So we're just going to start with the left-hand side first, I believe, and we're going to take our A square, a B square, and a D square, and they need to go on the corners as I'm showing you here. Of course, we won't be able to do A and B at the same time as they slightly overlap, but D is down there all on its own. So we will start by doing the sew and flip for the A square, and then we can do the other 2 at the same time as a second step. So I always like to keep the sew and flip that I'm doing in the top right hand corner so that I know which angle I'm going for and how to set that up properly. So in this instance, because I need to have the sew and flip I'm putting the corner on the top right hand side, I'm placing the G rectangle horizontally on the table in front of me, which means the long side is towards my tummy. I'm taking my little A square there and I'm drawing the diagonal line. Now in the pattern you will see that I've told you to draw the line on all of these before you even start, but you can do this however you like. We're then going to place that on that top right hand corner of our G rectangle, making sure that all of our bits and pieces are lining up, and we're going to take that to our machine. Now we need to stitch just to the right by 1 thread width maybe of our drawn line, and this allows for what's called the take up of the fabric, or the amount of fabric that is used when we fold this back over and press it out. If you sew directly on the line, you'll find in most instances that your edges don't still line up and you've lost the integrity of the shape of your original rectangle. So by stitching just to the right of that drawn line, we maintain that integrity and we allow for the fabric that's taken up when we press it over. So we're going to check that everything is still correct and lines up first before we press this into place and trim away our excess 2 layers from the back at 1/4 of an inch from our seam. And you can see that I've got that pretty much perfect, which is a rarity for me on video. Normally the first time I do it on video, I never get it right and I have to unpick it and do it again. So points to me this time for getting it correct. Because we do know that that's correct, and because I'm using batik, I can just finger press that and now trim away those excess 2 layers at 1/4 of an inch. We are now going to do exactly the same process for our B and D squares, putting those where they need to be as indicated on the pattern. So keeping in my theory of always putting the sew and flip on the top right hand corner, I'm now placing the piece vertically on the table in front of me, which means that I have the shortest part towards my tummy this time. I'm drawing my diagonal line, lining up all my edges. I'll take that to the machine and I'll once again stitch just to the right of that drawn line. The D square then needs to go on the bottom left hand corner and we'll stitch that on, and then this upper wing for the left hand side of the butterfly is complete. As I said before, we now need to just make a mirror image of what we just created so that we have the upper wing for the right side of our butterfly's body. So our A, B and D squares go in opposite corners to where they were before, so that when we're looking at it, if you put a mirror in the middle, we would have a mirror image, and that's what I'm doing with my hands there. But this time I am going to use my folded corner clipper tool, so I'm going to start by doing the B and D rather than the A like we did last time. So we'll just make sure that everything is lined up as per usual, so all our edges are square. We then bring in our folded corner clipper tool and we find our 3.5 inch mark because that's the size of our sew and flip square. We make sure that all of those edges are lined up on those 3.5 inch marks before slicing off the excess fabric first, and then we'll take this to the machine and we stitch our 1/4 inch and press out. I am going to do, as I said, the B and D at the same time, so I'll just place a pin in B, while I line up and get D ready to take to the machine, and we just do the same again. Except this time, if you don't have the folded corner clipper tool, but you do have a ruler that has a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and as quilters, who doesn't? Just find that 1/4 inch seam allowance and line that up diagonally across your sew and flip square, and then you'll still be cutting that 1/4 inch seam allowance off to take to the machine and stitch. Once we've stitched those, we'll press them out. So after I've done these two, I'll add our A square, and then we'll come back for further instruction. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that I changed the direction we were pressing that D sew and flip, and so it needs to go in towards the G rectangle, and that's so that when we get to the lower wing section that we have a nesting seam there. The pressing line is indicated on the pattern. I just was jumping ahead and not really thinking about future steps, which is, totally unlike me. Is it though? So anyway, we press A and B out towards the sew and flip corner, and we'll press D in towards that G rectangle. And the upper section of our butterfly is now complete with a right and a left. So with that upper section now done, we just need to move on to do our lower section. And once again, it is all just sew and flips, but this time we are using our fabric piece H, which is another print fabric. It's different to the one we used for G, or the same depending on how you're doing yours. Once again, I am only making one, but you do need to do all of these steps times 5. For our sew and flips on this one, we need background squares E and D. So we need 1 of E and 2 of D. Because I'll be using the folded corner clipper tool to do the rest of my sew and flips, I am actually going to lay all of these out at the beginning and make sure that I've got my mirror image as we go. So our E background square goes on the lower right hand corner of our left hand wing and the lower left hand corner of our right lower wing. And then the D squares, where do they go? Let's have a look in a moment. They go on the opposite side and one on each corner. So the upper left and the lower left hand corner of our left hand wing, and the lower right and the upper right hand corner of our right hand wing. Of course, once again, we can't do all of these at the same time, so we're just going to do the two that are diagonally opposite, like we did with the upper wing section. And once again, I'll be using my folded corner clipper tool, so I'm going to slice this off, pin that first one, slice the second one off, and then take them all to the machine and stitch them all at the same time before finally putting our other D square back on where it needs to be as per our pattern, and getting that ready and taking it to our machine and sewing again. So I'll just fast forward through all of this, as it is actually exactly the same as we did for our upper wings, making sure that we are creating a mirror image. No special pressing on these lower wing sections. We just can press everything out towards our sew and flip corner, as because we did that different pressing on the top wing, that's the only place that we're going to have two of our seams collide, and we're already going to have them nesting because of how we press them on the upper wing section. So I'm going to give all of these a final press into place, and we have both of our lower wing sections done. We're now going to grab in our I rectangles, which is the body of our butterfly, and our C and F background pieces, and these just get sewn onto either end of that I rectangle. Looking back, once I got this quilt completed, I really think I should have used a darker body, as it doesn't really show up that much, but what can you do? My quilt's already made. So just be careful when selecting that color of the body fabric. So once again, we are doing this by 5, but I'm not actually going to sew this yet. We're going to grab in our wing sections that we created before and lay the block out as it's going to be once it's completed. You will notice, because of the pressing that we did before, that our upper and lower wing sections do actually nest on that one seam that comes together on the top of the lower bit and the bottom of the top bit. Switch that around, reverse it. No, still the same. So this is how our butterfly will go together. So it's not a 9 patch, it's not a 4 patch, it's not, normally I go, here we're going to follow 9 patch rules. We are just going to start by sewing our 2 wing sections together, and the rectangle and the square onto that center one, and then each wing on each side of our body section in the middle. Now, I can't remember how I press these, so let's have a look. I think I press the seam open between the upper and lower wing section, and then just pick a direction and press for the body section, because none of those seam allowances need to line up. Yep, I do press it open. If you are using a lighter background fabric for that body section, press in towards the large I rectangle. If you're not using a dark fabric, just pick a direction and press. Then we'll move ahead and we'll sew each of these on again to that body section, the left and the right. And I think I press in towards the body, and then our butterflies are done. You just need to make 5. So you will notice here that my block isn't perfectly square, and that's okay. It never is when I do the sew and flips, whether I do them the traditional way or with my folded corner clipper tool. Just so long as this block roughly measures 10.5 inches unfinished, that's fine. But I am just going to give this a little bit of a trim, and the rest I just fudge in the seam allowances when I'm sewing them together, and you have seen me do that before in many of my videos. So go ahead and make all 5 of your butterflies, and we'll be back next week for our next step. Thank you so much for joining me in the first in this series for our Butterfly Garden Sew Along. I'm still not sure how many videos this will be, but I don't think it'll be any more than 5 or 6. As I said, I have actually filmed everything, but until I go to edit it, I won't know which ones I can put together, which ones, can be separate. As I said, the pattern will be released in pieces as we go along with the sew along. each week. You can find that in the files section over at my Facebook group, Kendall's Quilting Corner. But you can also find it at my Google Drive, which I've left a link in the description box below. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share it with a friend, subscribe if you haven't done so, tickle that little bell icon to be notified of all my future releases. And I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.